Hello, my name is Lars Brinkhoff. I'm here to hold a presentation about the evolution of TECO and Emacs, and it's going to be a hands-on demo of some of the programs during this evolutionary path. So let's get started with the demo. I'm going to use an emulator for the presentation itself. This is a PDP-10 emulator. So I'm logging in. And here's the title. So I'm going to talk about the TECO and Emacs text editors. TECO was a text editor created at MIT for one computer in 1962. It was initially made to edit paper tapes. So it loads one page at a time into the computer memory, and you can edit, and when you're done with that page, you punch it out and read the next page and so on. Unfortunately, we don't have that version anymore. Apparently has been lost. But the next version for a PDP-6 computer is available. So I'm going to show that now. So I'm going to turn to some kind of a teletype emulator. I already have a program running here for loading programs. So I'm going to load TECO, and as you can see, it's a very Spartan user interface, which is actually very good because teletype is usually quite slow. So here we are, we can edit text. The buffer is empty, so let's insert some text. That's the I command. And you end with typing escape twice, which echoes as $. So now we should have some text. If you want to see what's in there, we can use the T command, and we can specify a range of characters. The H character means the full buffer, and T, so we can type out the contents. We can move forward and backward. Let's say, let's move forward 5 characters. Oops, that didn't work so well. Oh, we may be at the, let's move to the beginning first. B stands for beginning and J for jump. Now, 5C. And we can insert something there. And we can see that something happened in the buffer. But TECO isn't just a normal text editor, it's known for being a programmable text editor. So we have things like registers. For example, we can type the number 65, which is ASCII for the letter A. And we can insert that using the U command in any register, which is a variable with a, let's pick 8. So we have the register 8 loaded with the value 65. So we can fetch that value with the Q command and have that inserted in buffer. Yes, we did get an A. And we also have some simple programming constructs like loops. So we can, for example, we can repeat 5 times some code. And we see we got a lot of B's in there. So that's a little flavor of TECO editing. So the next step is that TECO was ported to the ITS operating system, which is an operating system again at MIT. It's known for its hacker community, and among other people, Richard Stallman worked with ITS. So something that happened with TECO was that a hacker named Carl Mikkelsen, he added the Control R mode, which is real-time editing. So when you type, you can actually see the text being inserted into the buffer in real time. And then Richard Stallman improved a lot upon that, and he invented the feature to bind macros to keys. So macros, that's just a short pre-recorded sequence of TECO commands. And whenever you type a key, you can have that macro run. So when this happened, a lot of people, they used these technologies to make their own TECO macro packages. TechMac, Tmax, RMode, and several others. So there were many incompatible editors based on TECO. So now I'm going to show the slightly updated TECO. So I'm going to log in from another terminal emulator. And I'm going to start TECO. This is a version from 1974. So to load a file, we type ER. We do get the commands at the bottom of the screen. And my prepared file is TECO demo. And as a result, we get a little file listing. Where's the text, you wonder? Well, we have to get the first page. So Y for yank. And there's the first page. As I said before, TECO is a page-oriented editor. So you would only get one page at a time, and they're separated by a Control L or form feed character. So we can do a little edit here, I guess. So I meant to type some text, but I made a typo, but that's okay. We can remove two characters, -2 and D for delete. So this still isn't the real-time editing, by the way. This is the old way of using TECO. So let's insert T, and now we have the correct text in there. I want to save this file, so I'm using the EW command to specify output file. Let's say output file. Let's try that again. Let's say disk. That's better. And we still get that little file listing. Okay, let's say we're done with this page. Then we use P to punch it out. It's even though you're working with files now, it's still called punching a page. Looks like my EW command didn't work after all. This is what happens in demos, right? I wonder if that worked better. Let's try P again. Not sure. Where did my text go? Oh, apparently it disappeared. Sorry about that. Let's get it again. Oops, we have that again. Okay, we did get the first page, and we are at page 2, that's better. Alright, I wanted to talk about macros. I wanted to show you an actual macro being inserted and used. So I want to delete this page, the H for full buffer and K for killing all of it. That is erasing. So let's do something simple. Let's do the loop again. Sorry, I insert 5. Yes, so that's a little TECO code. Repeat 5 times, insert ASCII character 66. So we want to insert this text into a register. Again, H for all of it, X for putting it in a register. Let's take A. So that's fine. And we can run this by typing M for calling the macro and A for the register we used before. So that's 5 Bs, seems to work. And at this point I also want to show the new real-time editing mode, Control R. So this is actually quite a bit like Emacs already, because we have the standard Emacs key bindings, Control F for forward, B backwards, Control N next page, and we can just type and get the text right into the buffer. So that's already quite modern. Let's move to the next page with the P command, and there's the last page. So again, we use another command to actually save the file and have it stored in a proper file. Let's hope it's there somewhere. Not quite sure where it went, but we do have this file. Something strange happened, but anyway, you're supposed to be able to save to files. So back at the presentation. Right. So one of those TECO macro packages was called R mode. If you heard of text adventure game, maybe you heard of Zork. Zork was written using R mode. So that's maybe its claim to fame. And I'll use another. This a little bit more modern terminal emulator. So I'm going to start R mode and have to load a file. It's if you remember TECO, it's ER, but this is Control E and then R, so that's quite similar. So I loaded this file, and right at the beginning we can see there's an important difference because we can see 2 pages from the file. So that's already an improvement. And the commands are control characters like TECO and Emacs. So you can use Control F to move forward. Backwards is Control R, and typing is just typing as usual. But there is another invention here, and that's the mode. If you know about Emacs, you may know it has a lot of programming modes and various modes for various kinds of text. And R mode has this as well. So right now at the beginning we have a chunk, the word mode set, so we can move by word as well. Control N moves a chunk forward and P backwards. And we also have another mode called the S expression. That's for Lisp-like lists. So now we're moving by a list structure. So Control F should move us ahead of the... No, sorry, Control N moves for the next item in the list. So it jumps over that list. And Control P moves backwards. And Control D moves down into the list structure. And Control U moves up. So that's clearly a step ahead in the evolution. Okay, that's it for our mode. So now we arrive at Emacs itself. It was started as a way to unify various incompatible TECO macro sets. It was started by Guy Steele in 1976. At first it was called a question mark because they didn't know what to name it, so kind of question mark max for the macros, but eventually they arrived at a more convenient name, E macros or Emacs. So I'm going to show a version from late 1976. And there we have the first Emacs. It's very unassuming. So we may want to try some Emacs commands. Those who know Emacs know that loading a file is Control X and then Control F, but that didn't work, it just blinked the screen. So apparently it's something else. But Emacs is very friendly. You can type question mark to get some help. Let's view all subcommands. So if you search down this list, we can see Control R is read file. So that's what we want. So let's try that again. Control X, Control R. And now we get some weird thing at the top. This is a mini buffer. It's a special buffer with a little bit of code in it. The code inside is actually TECO code. It's put there in place for us to just type the file name. I'm loading the file Emacs demo. And since this is TECO now, we just type escape twice to execute the command. So there's my file loaded. So one of the large improvements in Emacs is the use of a help system. So we have Control C, question mark, brings up a lot of help. And we can tell this is a very early version of Emacs because there's no meta X for extended commands. If we type escape to try to use the meta prefix, we just get a mini buffer. So what we do instead? Well, that's the TECO command. So we can try the one I have already written here. list commands. So this is kind of instead of typing meta X list commands. So we get a list of commands. But other than that, many things are quite the same. We just type the keys to insert text, like we used to. And all the Control P previous line, Control N next line, Control F forward, Control B backwards, and so on. That's just like in Emacs right until today. So we're back in the presentation. The next thing that happened was that Emacs was very popular It was implemented for many different machines. And maybe most importantly, the TOPS 20 machine was very popular on ARPANET. So many people had the inspiration to make their own Emacs implementation, which led to James Gosling of Java fame making his his Unis Emacs. But before that, I'm going to show the latest Emacs on ITS. So I'll just type Emacs. So this is the latest Emacs, so at least we have a little bit of announcement at the top. So we have many of the conveniences we know from modern Emacs. We have meta-x to type an extended command. We have, for example, the directory editor, where you can move around in the directory and, for example, delete a file. We have the info help system with lots of information about the ITS system, and of course we have the Emacs manual online. And we also have some convenience for interactive Lisp editing. Oops, sorry, not in Lisp yet. So I have a little cheat here. Lisp TECO actually, but we're using Emacs. So we get an Emacs editor, and here we can start adding some Lisp code. Small add function. So type meta z to get that back in Lisp, and we can use that right away. And we can go back and continue editing. So we can make it a little bit different. I'm sorry, meta c to go back. And now it does something different. Did I do away with my presentation maybe? So that's the latest ITS Emacs. So Emacs on Unix. The most famous version was written by James Gosling in the early 80s. So I have that on another emulator running BSD Unix on a VAX. So I installed that in the file system. I have two versions of Emacs here. This one is the Gosling Emacs. And we can see it's starting to look a lot of like normal modern Emacs. Of course, typing is all the same, and all the usual Emacs commands are there. This was probably inspired by the TOPS 20 Emacs, which is also a PDP-10 machine like ITS. We have the meta-x commands. We probably have some kind of info system, but it doesn't work yet because I don't know how to install everything. We also have a Lisp-like extension language, but it's a little bit different. I think it looks something like this, so it's called mock Lisp because it's not quite proper Lisp. But it looks a bit like Lisp, and you can write libraries for your editing. Yes, I have to. So what happened was that Richard Stallman, the original Emacs hacker, he wanted to start his GNU project, and he wanted an Emacs editor, so he based it on Gosling Emacs, but basically rewrote everything. So I have a very early version from 1985. So this looks almost like Emacs from today. We have the mode line at the bottom and some announcements at the top. That's managed quickly. We have MeetX. Still no info properly installed here. But anyway, it looks pretty much like normal Emacs today, and we can write Emacs Lisp right in this buffer. And test it right away. Oh, right, I have to evaluate this first. So I get 5. That looks right. And that basically marks the beginning of the modern GNU Emacs era. And that's all I have as far as demos go. Any questions?
The early editors, were they primarily used for like hacking code, or did they have like documents or?
Well, they did have documents, but of course much of the computer activities at that time was programming.
Yeah.
But they also wrote like memos and papers and things like that.
Because I wonder why, like Lisp, for instance, is quite integrated in the
Right.
editor itself.
Yes,
so
Lisp was an important language, especially at MIT where it was invented. Okay, thank you.
Great.